everyone. Excuse my voice. I'm still coming off of a flu cold thing, and I dragged myself out of bed because I want to talk to all of you because you were excited to hear about handbooks.
Employee handbooks.
Employee handbooks. Everybody loves employee handbooks. So employee handbooks, because it's everybody's favorite topic, and we all know what they look like. So first, do you have one? Do you know where it is? And do you know what's in it? I'm just going to spend a few minutes just talking. I know we're talking about handbooks and employees and technology, but I just want to spend a few minutes just on handbooks in general. Because we all think we have a handbook like this, right? Somewhere, maybe. And it looks like this, perhaps, maybe. And how many of you know for sure that you have one? And how many know what's in your handbook? How many of you know where your handbook is? That's pretty good. So, but why have one? Because lawyers. We will, because you can blame us, because yes, we will tell you you should have a handbook. Because some things you're simply required to tell your employees. You're required by either state or federal law. But more than that, your company is unique to you. The handbook helps establish your culture, your mission, your values. And these will be important because they will formulate your policies. You're setting those clear expectations for all employees, as well as yourself as the owner. So you know what to expect. You want consistent rules and policies. I often joke to clients when they come to me and say, well, I want to terminate an employee because they're not following the rules. Well, is a consistent rule, is it consistently applied? And you'd be surprised the number of times the answer is, well, in which case we have to have a much longer conversation. And it's a resource for everyone, as I alluded to earlier. It's not just for employees, but it's also for owners. It's for managers. It's a common resource that provides everybody the same basis for looking at whatever they're doing. But it doesn't have to be boring. These are some examples of some of the best handbooks that are out there. And they are not the conventional 8.5 by 11 binder handbook. Because these are companies that have taken a very innovative approach to their handbooks, their employees recognize the culture of that company is different. And you know, for some employers, their company may, because of policies or because of industry, they may see themselves as being confined to an 8.5 by 11 handbook, bound in a binder, but you don't have to be. You can be a, actually one of these is Facebook. So you can be a billion-dollar company and have a non-traditional handbook. I also like this. This is also recognized as one of the most innovative handbooks. I was giving Barker a hard time earlier because I said that her company has, and her design of a handbook is probably one of the best I've ever seen. It's very non-traditional, but it expresses the message. It's very clear what the company's expectations are of the employees, and also very clearly expresses the culture of that company. It's great. It's brilliant, and also makes lawyers happy because you comply with all the things that we like. So where is your handbook? Often when new companies, when entrepreneurs come out, they know they need a handbook, so they download one off the internet, they print it out, they put it on a shelf somewhere, and they have no idea where it is. And okay, then you might as well not have one, because that doesn't help you at all. Make sure it's available. And even if it's not necessarily physical form, you want to have acknowledgement from the employee, from all your employees. One of the most important things that goes in their employee file that They've read the handbook, they understand it. You can have it available online. You have links to, you don't have to have all the statutes that are necessary for the handbook. You don't have to have it in the handbook. You just have to be able to, for that employee to access those statutes. You have provided to them. So you can have links. You can have the entire handbook online. Or through the company intranet. But you want to make sure it's updated. As this topic is about technology. Technology is always changing. And the things that we talked about 10 years ago in technology and employee no longer apply. Because 10 years ago, we were lucky to have a computer with maybe, 256 gigabytes? Now a terabyte hard drive is commonplace. In fact, it's now commonplace not really to have a hard drive because all of your data is stored in the cloud. That didn't happen. So what our policies toward handbooks and toward employees and the use of technology is always changing and evolving. We would recommend that you update your handbook at least once a year. Go over it, have it scheduled, sit down with someone, whether it's your attorney, whether it's your HR professional, but someone to sit down and go through the handbook and see how technology has changed, how you would use technology, and how law has changed, and update the handbook to make sure you comply with what's best for your company. All right, so do you know what's in it? As owners, as managers, as people who are in charge, you've got to read it, understand it, and you have to ask questions if you don't. It's surprising to me that the number of people who have handbooks don't actually know what it actually says or what it means, which is okay, because you're not necessarily expected to. But if you don't understand what it means, then ask someone who does, your HR professional, your attorney. That's what we're here for. So that leads us to technology and the employee. And we mainly talk about our technology as something that helps us. It makes our businesses more lean, more mobile, more flexible, and it's great when it's used correctly. But that also means that we need lots of policies and lots of thinking about how we use that technology and how we allow our employees to use that technology. Because no policies equals loss of time, loss of business, loss of clients. Our policies don't have to be pages and pages of text about what you can't do, what you shouldn't do, what you can do. It can really just be about what your expectations as an owner, as a manager, what you want from your employees, and also setting out what they expect from you. One thing that the first thing that we say to employers is, oh, I should back up. Do you know when you need a handbook? Anyone? If you have, anyone? When do you need a handbook? How many employees do you need to have a handbook?
Before you're first.
Yeah, you're first. You have one employee other than yourself, you better have a handbook. Because you want to set your expectation of privacy. And we think that's one of the most important things for employees to tell employees. This is, can I borrow someone's cell phone? It's the exception to the rule that you don't have pictures of your family on your work computer or your phone. This is my computer. If you look at my phone, it's very similar. Because we simply do. We live a good part of our lives at the office and with our computers and with our phones. And so it's a natural instinct for us to make it homey. We put our pictures of our families on our phones. But who owns those photos if it's a company phone? And what about the texts or messages and emails that we have on those phones? Can anybody look at them? And at least 95% of employees use at least one personal device at work. And 90% of Americans use a personal cell phone for work. We simply do. How many of you have a cell phone? Yes?
Sorry, when you say personal cell phone, that means it's not company issued.
Correct. So who has a cell phone, a personal cell phone that you pay for, that you use for work? And how many have a company cell phone paid for by an employer that you use for personal uses. It's going to be generally one or the other. It's hard. There are very few people that. My wife has 2 phones, one for work and one for her personal use, and I'm always amazed that she is able to do it. And I asked her about it, and she says she hates it. She can't stand having 2 phones, and that's true of a lot of people. You know, it's a policy for a lot of companies. I shouldn't say a lot of companies, for some companies, but eventually, often employees will merge the 2 unless there are incredibly strict rules in place. Banking, government are 2 places where that often happens. And because technology blurs lines, what we think of as private is often blurred. Excuse me. What we say to employers often is that they should make it clear to employees that what they have in company equipment is not private or personal. You're not responsible for the employer's not responsible for the personal property of employees, and they should have no expectation of privacy at the workplace. They don't act like what you do at work will be private, and that's important to emphasize to employees as well. You know, often we joke about employees that show up in their pajamas. In fact, there are companies that have pajama day. But it's easy because we spend so much time at work that we begin to think of our office, especially if we have a private office or a cubicle, as our space. And we act like it is. We bring our food in, we have a tray with all our snacks. My wife came to work one day and she was giving me a hard time because she opened my credenza and she said, "Your credenza is not full of legal files, it's full of snacks." You know, I get hungry when I'm writing, so but it's really common. And in our handbooks, we want to emphasize to employees that, okay, it's fine if you want, we want you to feel welcome. We want you to feel like work is something that you can relax and be productive. But at the same time, it's not yours. It's your work, and it's what you do at work, especially what you store at work, is not necessarily private. And we don't necessarily need to have specific rules about that. I'll give an example. We had a situation where a senior executive using company phone had forgotten that the phone had backed up to the company's computers, the company servers. And there was a series of personal messages between him and his spouse, that, including some photos that could be a little embarrassing. And and the employer was like, "What do I do? How do I tell the employee that?" Because they've just forgotten, they're not necessarily violating any rule. This is communication. They're not sharing company secrets. They're not harassing another employee. They're just simply using a company equipment to have a private conversation with a spouse. And it was really about how to spare that senior executive embarrassment. And so we worked out a plan where we pushed out a reminder, a policy. In fact, would you mind handing out where we just simply pushed out a new policy reminding all employees, including senior executives, that what they have on their company phones is not private. And not only did the communication cease, but they quietly went to, we understand, they quietly went to the IT department and asked to scrub some of their prior conversations, which IT did, to spare that person embarrassment, and they did. But it's sometimes it's that reminder that what you do at work is not necessarily private. But be careful. So I've given you a sample privacy policy, which we think is broad and covers a lot of situations. But I often tell clients, you can go out to the internet and you can download a handbook from, and it's free, it's great, it's a template, and generally if you get it from a reputable place, it's going to be pretty decent. But it's not geared towards you. It's not specific to your business, to your culture, to your mission, and to your values. So if you don't personalize, and it may not be, if you're downloading it from a large site, it may not be specific to your state, so it may not comply with state law. In a similar fashion, I've kind of given you an example of a privacy policy that covers, I think, most situations, but doesn't necessarily. So we often tell clients that they have to think about how that policy, how that reflects their values, how it reflects their company. So one of the things that doesn't, we often caution them to, a lot of companies have bring your own device policies. So it's the employee's cell phone, it's the employee's computer because it's a better, faster, more powerful, what have you, and they're bringing it to work. And something like 14% of companies surveyed had a bring your own device to work policy. And that's probably going to increase, especially as technology, especially as employees become more mobile. You can, for our practice, we could practice law anywhere in the world, basically, because all we really need is an internet connection and a laptop. And that's going to be true of more and more of employees and skilled labor. So bring your own device policies, this is not actually specific to bring your own device policies. So take that as a caveat. If you're going to have more of your employees bring their own devices, not using devices that you are providing to the employee, you should sit down with your HR professional or your attorney and talk about it. Second, there are areas of actual privacy. Employees do have expectations of privacy in, say, the bathrooms. In areas, in Minnesota, you have areas that are set aside for nursing mothers. So be careful about having employees have no expectation of privacy whatsoever at work, because they do have some expectation of privacy, especially if it's their own device. Again, this goes back to bringing their own devices. Often employees will. You may have policies at work that say employees shall not check Facebook with their company computer. Okay, if they bring their own cell phone and they're looking at Facebook on their own time, it's difficult to create a policy against something like that. So don't go too far, and understand there are cases where employers have said, employees, you have used your own cell phone for business, so we want to look at your cell phone, we want to see what's on it. And they demanded passwords to, say, Facebook or LinkedIn, generally because they suspected some nefarious thing going on. And the courts have said, well, no, there's a balance. There's some things, especially when an employee has their own password on their own device, there is an expectation of privacy. And be careful going too far. We often expect that, especially when interviewing new employees, with Google and the internet, it's easy to check up on that prospective employee. But some employers have gone so far as to create a profile, and friend a prospective employee to learn more about them. And courts have taken a very dim view of that sort of behavior. If it doesn't seem right, if it doesn't fit with your values, you should take a step back. The next thing I want to talk about is social media policy, and that's a really hot topic. Social media is all around us, and we are bombarded by social media. If you're not on social media, you're in very much the minority. I don't know if you can see this, but basically, if you are between 18 and 29, something like 87% of those surveyed have some kind of social media presence. and I don't think anyone here in this room is in the 65 and over age, but even if you are, it's between 25 and 50% are on social media. My mother, my 87-year-old mother, is on social media, which is great. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and many companies are using social media to market and even to solicit additional customers. But why have a social media policy? You want to protect your reputation, first of all. You want to understand and set boundaries for your employees on what is appropriate and not appropriate social media use. You want to protect confidential information. Often things are posted on social media without much thought because it's so easy, so fast. And if you have spent months or even years developing a new product for a launch, and you have a common message, you don't want that to be spoiled by someone inadvertently saying something about it on social media. And you also want to have social media policy protect yourself and others from discrimination and other types of claims. We all have heard news stories of what's happened with employees, even on their own time, posting things on social media that upset our clients or upset our customers, upset our ownership. And then what do you do about that employee? Maybe you can't do anything unless you have social media policies. But you have to be careful because NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, prohibits policies that restrict concentrated activity to improve terms and conditions of employment. And what does that mean? Basically, the National Labor Relations Board has said that you, the employers, you, the owners, can't have policies that prohibit employees from complaining. You can't prohibit employees from talking about things that they are unhappy about in order to improve the workplace. Even if you're a non-union shop, even if you have no unionized labor or employees, it really has to do with allowing employees to express their frustrations in the workplace to each other. And prohibiting that can get you in trouble. So you have to be careful of using terms like insubordination, disrespectful, or rude. Those are keywords for the NLRB because they often are vague policies that the NLRB says are illegal. And I have the yellow screen. So I also did a sample social media policy that helps kind of talk about what a typical employer's expectations are for employees. Excuse me. And you can see that I actually use the words disrespectful and rude. I have read the NLRB General Counsel's memo about what's permitted and not permitted for social policy handbooks probably a dozen times. And I get confused. This is not an area where you want to just put something off the internet or make it up. You're permitted to use certain policies, certain words in a certain context. But in a different context, a different role, a change of a word or two, and it doesn't work. You're not allowed to. It's illegal. And you will get in trouble. Your company will get in trouble and will get fined. So again, social media policies and handbooks in general, restricting what employees can or cannot say in the workplace is an area where you want to tread carefully. And then my third fun topic, cell phones and driving. The basic rule is don't allow texting or cell phone use driving during work. How many of you have ever used a cell phone while driving? Right? And I'm not even talking about texting. I mean, we have a conversation. We do. And sometimes it might be as simple as you're calling home to let someone know that you're picking up milk. Or you're having a conversation with the office to say you're on the way back, or you're having a conversation with the client trying to figure something out. I can barely chew gum and walk at the same time. So I'm probably not someone that should have an in-depth conversation with a client about some complex legal matter while driving. We've all seen these pictures. We've all seen these videos. Accidents, damage, death caused by someone texting and driving. What's different about this one? All these pictures are all employees, all who have caused accidents and death while at work. Just about 48 states have some type of regulation regarding texting and driving. I'm not quite sure what's up with Montana and Arizona, but okay. But the scary thing for employers and business owners is that now we're finding employer liability for employees' use of cell phones while driving. We're not talking just about texting, but also just cell phone usage. Because the theory being, because the employee is distracted while at work or doing something before work, then the employer is liable. And that sort of makes sense. If the employee injured someone, a customer or someone just walking by while at work because they were focused on work and not on whoever happened to be walking by, it would make sense that the employer would be liable. You can assign a task to that employee, and in the course of performing that task, the employee has injured, perhaps even killed someone. Here, these juries have found, judges and juries have found employers liable when the employer has asked the employee to do something for work and the employees were driving. And there are millions of dollars in awards. This has not really been a settled issue yet, but it will continue to be a very hot and I think a much more litigated issue as we move forward, because cell phone usage is simply prevalent. We would recommend to our clients, don't text or call employees while they're driving. Don't, and that's fairly common. We know someone's heading back for a meeting and we want them to do something. We call them, we text them. It's hard for a trier of fact, a judge or jury, to not see it as employer liability if you're going to send a message to an employee knowing or expecting that employee to read it, knowing that they're driving. Don't allow employees to call or text while driving. Not only is it texting prohibited by most state law, but it's simply a smart thing to do. You want to have these policies in place so that if that employee violates the policy and causes damage or death or injury, you want to say that employee is violating our company policy. And you want to enforce it. It can't simply be something that you put into your handbook and forget about. And you can point to it and say, look, it's there. No, you have to actually enforce it. We would recommend requiring employees to pull over and park before making calls. And that's becoming a national trend as well. It goes back to the very beginning of cell phones, when that was sort of a common rule. And we've just kind of gotten away from it. And then also technology can help you. You can also require use for iPhone and Android users. There is a function on your phone that will that will send a message. It's simply a function, especially I know on iOS 11, which is the newest operating system for an iPhone. You can simply select the function and you text that person. When they get into the car, the phone will somehow, through their algorithm, automatically detect that that person is driving. And if any message is sent to that person, will receive a reply back to say that they're driving, and they will reply later. And I believe it's the same for Android use.
Question?
Yeah.
So what about other things that are on a cell phone, like music or maps? What do you tell your employees about those things?
Are you having or is it part of their job function? That's kind of going to be the key, is that these employers are found, and the broad scope, no, you shouldn't have anything that distracts you from driving. But as the employer, your focus is really, are you doing anything to this employee that says, this employee, you're working. You are doing something for work for the employer, not for their own personal use. And if you are, that's where the liability is going to arise.
So I guess mapping, if you're going to a meeting, and
Right.
using that, then that would be for work.
It would be for work, so you should probably have a if you do have, if the employee is using mapping, they should have a hands-free, but they're going to be distracted by it, right? I mean, we all see situations where we've read about situations where people drive off a pier because they're following GPS too carefully. They're distracted, they're clearly distracted, they're watching GPS and not the road. And if they do that for work, yeah, then the employers may have some liability to that. Which, thank you, because that leads to my next slide. Do you have any questions?
So if an employee complains on a social media channel,
Yeah.
and the employer, either directly or indirectly, hears about that complaint and thinks, you know what, that employee complaint is legitimate, we're going to use that to improve the workplace. Can the employer address that employee for saying that, saying, you know, we caught wind of your complaint, thank you, and here's what we're going to do, change? Is that considered snooping or anything illegal according to state local regulations?
No, I mean, and that's fine. What the NLRB, there are kind of two problems. One is what the NLRB is really interested in is the employer that stifles employee complaints. That says you can't complain at all about your employer. That anything you say that's disrespectful, we can fire you for. And our NLRB says, well, no, that goes against what the National Labor Relations Act really is about, is allowing employees to discuss collectively what are the conditions of work that need to improve. And that's permitted by federal law, and often is supported by state law. So saying to the employee, okay, we understand your complaint, that's fine. The other issue I think you're alluding to is what's snooping. And if it's public, it's in the public forum, then that's fine. If it's available to anyone, really. But where it becomes much more difficult is going into an employee's private conversation. So not using company using company property on their own time, and using a private conversation beyond simply what's a natural friendship. Let's say you're befriending the employee for the sole purpose of discovering what they're saying about the employer. Yeah, that's going to get you in trouble.
Okay.
So Rich, speak to the Dolphins coach snorts cocaine, sends it to his girlfriend. She posts it on social media. Private interaction, but now, you know, he's a public figure and face is in the news. As an employee.
Right, as an employee.
He's an employee.
As an employee. I would not want to represent him at this point.
He's already resigned, but
yeah, he's already resigned. I mean, he would have a very difficult time because it's not about the use of social media. It's really about, here's evidence of him probably violating some company employer rule about illegal drug use. He's violated the law, most likely.
and apparently at the work at his office.
And at work, right?
Was this former girlfriend?
No, I don't think
She
so.
is now a former girlfriend?
He was sharing his affection for her.
Yeah.
Lucy, you have a question?
So, if an employee posts something on their Facebook, like, let's say they called in sick,
Right.
and then they post something on Facebook that shows that they're not sick,
Right.
and it gets back to the employer, is
Right.
it legal to reprimand them for that, or?
This is fairly common, as you may guess. Yes and no.
Good lawyer.
It's not. It's a public. You know, it's a public Facebook. Then it would be perfectly legitimate for the employer to initiate an investigation. they probably shouldn't take action based solely on that Facebook without investigation alone. That's really what the courts have actually said as well.
And then kind of that if like a manager for a company has different views, political views or whatever from the owner of the company.
Right.
And can they get in trouble for posting, for posting things that don't fit into their, they don't, let's say they don't want the company to look bad, or you're a manager, you represent our company, we don't want you saying these things that could make you, look bad for the
Right.
company. Is that a conversation that an owner or a manager can have with another manager?
Yes. As I said, your social media policy is about sort of protecting the reputation of the company. You balance that against, you expect a certain professionalism from your employees, and that's fine. It's you just want to make sure that whatever the employee is posting that you have an issue with, that is not about the workplace. So if they're complaining about something in general, or taking a general policy position, they don't like Canvas, and you have nothing, your business has nothing to do with Canvas, then sure, you can say that doesn't comport with our values and our what we believe as a company. Your company manufactures foods for pandas. Well, are they complaining about that? Is this really related to their work? If it is, then I would advise the employer to step more carefully in how they address that employee.
So basically, if it doesn't have anything to do with the workplace, then it kind of leave it alone.
If it doesn't have anything to do with the workplace, you can decide if it doesn't fit, if it's not representative of the company, if it's not, and they will have to be if they're also very clear. If they're saying these are not the company's views, these are my views. That's one thing. But if it reflects on the professionalism of the company, then it's perfectly legitimate for the employer to speak to that employee. It's just be careful if that employee is really complaining about or taking an issue about a workplace condition or something related to work, then step very carefully.
Are you aware of any website that might have templates for employee handbooks based upon the type of industry that they're in? Like I think an employee handbook for a hospital would be different from an employee handbook for manufacturing.
Right, they are. And they tend to be. Am I aware of any? No. Probably sort of the industry leader is an organization called SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management. They have a handbook that's used by a lot of companies, but it's very broad, very general. I don't know very many specific available templates for a particular industry. That's why we definitely recommend. Templates are a great place to start, but when you start talking about your business,
I understand that. I just kind of like a starting point.
Right, as a starting point. The other thing I was mentioning in terms of a social media policy, we're still kind of developing, I'm sorry, not social media, a policy regarding use of cell phones and other devices while driving. We're still developing that policy. We're trying to fine tune it. So if you would like a copy of that a sample of that when we complete it, you can just say that on your comment sheet and we'll make sure to send it to you.
How about in the interview process? Like how much snooping, or I know you mentioned you can't really set up
You can't trick them to.
You can't trick them, but like if you, let's say, can you ask them for their login on Facebook?
No.
During an interview?
No.
Can you do a public Facebook search for
Sure.
their name?
Yeah, you can do.
So whatever's out in the public, you could look at.
Right. Yeah, especially if they're not an employee, you can't ask them for a password. Yeah.
Can you Google?
You Google them. You can. If it's public, it's out for anybody's information.
Aren't there other industries where that is okay, like in the security business?
In the security
Or
industry.
FBI or, you know, some sort of.
There are very specific rules about certain types of industries. You're allowed to go further, and it's with that employee's permission generally. Basically, there's really no situation where you can deceptively look at an employee's private information. But there are certain industries that allow you to, with the employee's cooperation, look at things that would normally be private.
One more question and then we'll wrap up.
So a little bit afield, but internet reputations of a company.
Okay.
So somebody's saying stuff about you online, may or may not be true. How do you handle those that say it is true? Any recommendations that might not necessarily be a legal answer? What about the ones that aren't true? Like, hey, this company's product was horrible, this, that, and the other thing. What legally can you do? Or is it best to just try to let it lie and hopefully not poison the well, as you say?
And depending how serious it is and how slanderous it is, there may be grounds for legal action, injunction, investigation, defamation suit. If it's not true, if it is true and it paints a company in a negative light, then it's more about not a legal aspect really, but really about writing out the story and presenting information that helps explain the situation. And it's really that's more of a public relations matter.
I think the answer to that is similar to article in newspaper that you don't agree with. Sometimes the correction brings more attention than the story got in the first place. So we always have to, I think, balance that as well. Thanks, Rich. Well, I wanted to bring Rich here today. Employment law has become more and more complicated, and we get lots more questions about that. And just as Rich has actually developed a legal specialty in real estate and has that designation in Minnesota, lots and lots of experience here. You can tell from being able to freewheel on stuff. So if you have any questions on employment law, those matters, don't hesitate to call. Please, we got a new venue. I think it's great, but fill out an evaluation form. If you want your texting and driving policy, put your name and email on there, and we'll make sure to get that out to you. Next month, Carrie Tuttleman, underperforming owners. Be sure to come, tell your friends.